Today I am going to speak on preparation and characterization of sulfasalazine polymeric nanoparticles by solvent evaporation and salting out techniques. So in this I am going to explain about introduction to nanoparticles, what is the significance of this particular study, why we have taken sulfasalazine, why we have prepared nanoparticle drug delivery system for sulfasalazine, what are the objectives of my present study, what are the experimental methodology. Here we have opted two techniques, solvent evaporation as well as salting out technique. So in this we made a comparative study between solvent evaporation as well as salting out techniques. So in solvent evaporation we have taken ethyl cellulose and Eudragit, two polymers, and among these two polymers, which polymer is considered to be best for the preparation of sulfasalazine nanoparticles we have determined. So these are all my conclusions and references. So abstract is in this work we have prepared sulfasalazine polymeric nanoparticles by solvent evaporation as well as salting out techniques. In this solvent evaporation technique, we have taken ethyl cellulose and Eudragit as polymers. All the 5 formulations have been prepared by altering drug to polymer ratio. All the formulations have been evaluated for drug content, entrapment efficiency, loading capacity, drug release studies, and the particle size, zeta potential. The mean particle diameter and zeta potential values has been determined, and the values are found for salting out and solvent evaporation technique. A comparative study was made between these two techniques in order to determine which technique is considered to be most suitable to prepare sulfasalazine nanoparticles. So let us come to the introduction to the nanoparticles. So what are nanoparticles? Nanoparticles are nothing but sub-nano-sized colloidal structures made up of synthetic and semi-synthetic polymers. They have been classified into nanospheres, nanocapsules, and nanovesicles. In nanospheres, the drug is absorbed upon the surface. In nanocapsules, the drug is present in the central core surrounded by polymeric embryonic sheet. In nanovesicles, the drug is encapsulated in solution system. So the polymers which normally we prefer to prepare polymeric nanoparticles has been classified into two: natural polymers and synthetic hydrophobic polymers. The natural polymers has been classified into proteins and polysaccharides. The synthetic hydrophobic polymers, they are polybutyl cyanoacrylate, PMMA, all these comes under synthetic hydrophobic polymers. So these are all various techniques for the preparation of polymeric nanoparticles. Basically, all the techniques have been classified into three categories: polymer precipitation methods and polymerization techniques, amphiphilic macromolecular cross-linking methods. So in polymer precipitation method, solvent evaporation, nanoprecipitation, salting out, these three techniques are considered to be very, very important. So in this study, we opted this polymer precipitation techniques. First one is solvent evaporation technique we opted, salting out technique also we opted. So a comparative study was made between these two techniques to determine which one is considered to be the best one. So we have studied all the literature. After reading so many articles, we came to know that for sulfasalazine there are no nanoparticles are available, and sulfasalazine is available as anticoated tablets and capsules, but not in the form of nanoparticles. So solvent evaporation method is also a very convenient method to prepare micro and nanoparticle drug delivery system. For so many drugs, this technique was adopted and the results were considered to be really excellent. So in this study, we opted a solvent evaporation technique to prepare sulfasalazine nanoparticles. So ethyl cellulose and Eudragit, both are considered to be very good polymers. They are exhibiting sustained release property. They have been used as a polymers for various other drugs. So in this study, we have taken these two polymers in order to obtain the nanoparticles. So what is the objective of the study is to prepare sulfasalazine nanoparticles by using Eudragit and ethyl cellulose as polymers, and to compare these both polymers and to compare both the techniques in order to determine which polymer and which technique is suitable to prepare sulfasalazine nanoparticles. So this is sulfasalazine. It is a BCS class 2 drug, and disease modifying. This sulfasalazine is mainly used in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. Basically, way we have started working with this particular sulfasalazine is Sulfasalazine is a BCS class 2 drug and it is exhibiting less poor bioavailability. The bioavailability of sulfasalazine is considered to be less than 15%, and it is half-life is 5 to 10 hours. Protein binding is 95%, it is bound to the albumin. So it is mainly used in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. It is a disease modifying agent. So if you are going to prepare the nanoparticular drug delivery system for this particular drug, the site specific targeting can be obtained, and we can improve the bioavailability also by particle size reduction. By keeping all these parameters into mind, we have opted this particular methodology. So ethyl cellulose, it is a polymer. Hydrangid is also one more polymer. Ethyl cellulose, both are considered to be synthetic polymers. And why we have taken synthetic polymers is the polymer precipitation technique, solvent evaporation or salting out, whatever techniques we have chosen, both techniques are suitable for all these in order to prepare nanoparticles. Only it is possible to choose hydrophobic polymers. These techniques are not suitable for hydrophilic polymers. So ethyl cellulose and hydrangid both are hydrophobic polymers. So we have chosen these two polymers in order to prepare the nanoparticles by polymer precipitation technique. So this is the methodology for solvent evaporation technique. Here the drug and polymer both are dissolved in organic phase. In the aqueous phase, a surfactant which acts as a stabilizer was taken. Organic phase is added to the aqueous phase under continuous stirring till it leads to formation. The solvent will be evaporated and the polymer will be precipitated. So it leads to formation of nanosphere. So before starting the technique, we have to optimize the parameter process variables. So organic phase, we have selected 3 organic solvents. So among them, ethanol is considered to be better to dissolve the drug and polymer. And the type and concentration of surfactant. In the aqueous phase, we are going to use a surfactant in order to make it stable. So here we have taken PVA, tween 20 and tween 80. Among them, the tween 20 0.25% concentration is giving the better result. The agitation speed, stirring speed, this is the parameter what we have to optimize before starting the experiment. So 700 RPM is giving better result. And organic to aqueous phase ratio, it is also considered to be one of the most important parameters which we have to optimize. So we conducted 3 experiments. Among the 3, the 1:10 ratio is giving the better result and comparison to the remaining. So these are all optimized process variables. We have prepared 5 formulations. The agitation time is 3 hours, surfactant is 20, organic to aqueous phase ratio is 1:10. The agitation speed is 700 RPM. Organic phase is ethanol dibutyl phthalate. So this is the experimental methodology. Am I audible? Shall I continue?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Experimental methodology. So here sulfasalazine and ethyl cellulose are hydrangid, polymer and drug. Both were dissolved in ethanol at various drug polymer ratios. Then the organic phase was added to the aqueous phase during the process of stirring at 700 RPM. So the aqueous phase contained tween 20 as surfactant at 0.25% concentration. The organic phase was added slowly to the aqueous phase under continuous stirring. Then it leads to formation of oil-water emulsion. Upon evaporation of solvent, it leads to formation of nanospheres. So the obtained nanoparticles were characterized for surface morphology, drug-polymer interaction, mean particle diameter, and stability. The surface morphology was determined by means of SEM, drug-polymer interactions studied by FTIR. The mean particle diameter was done by particle size analyzer. Stability was also determined by data sizer. So these are the SEM images of F2 formulation of EC and hydrangid. This is considered to be, we obtained stable formulation when we kept 1:1.5 ratio of drug to polymer. So if you are going to observe, the particles were found to be spherical in shape and they are ranging in nano. So this is FTIR spectra, the polymer and the drug as well as formulation. All the 3 peaks has been compared. So in the formulation, we didn't find any additional peaks. Whatever peaks that are there in ethyl cellulose and sulfasalazine. The same peaks were observed in the formulation also. So from this we came to know that there is no drug polymer interaction. So there is no incompatibility. So this is the FTIR spectra of Abbaraju. Next parameter what we have seen is mean particle diameter. So this was determined by particle size analyzer. So on comparison, this is either cellulose formulation, this is with Abbaraju formulation. Among the 5 formulations of EC, the formulation F3 is giving the mean particle diameter 160 nanometers. Among the 5 formulations of Abbaraju, the F1 formulation having 178 nanometer is considered to be the best one. So this is the mean particle diameter particle size distribution report of the best formulation. The mean particle diameter was found to be 188.1 nanometer. This is the particle size distribution report of F3 formulation of Abbaraju. The mean particle diameter was found to be 146.8 nanometers. So zeta potential is the second parameter. Normally we determine the zeta potential in order to know the stability of the formulation. If you are going to see the nanoparticles, stability is considered to be the major problem. So in order to improve the stability also, that is one challenging aspect. We have to prepare so many formulation by altering drug to polymer. So by measuring the zeta potential, we will be able to know whether the formulation is stable or not. So within the 5 formulations of EC, the F1 formulation was showing the highest zeta potential value, indicating its stability. Among the Abbaraju also, the F1 formulation was showing the highest zeta potential value of 62. So this is the zeta potential report of ethyl cellulose best formulation. This is the zeta potential report of ED formulation. So next we coming by this we can characterization of these 2 polymers is over. So next we are entering into the evaluation studies: yield, drug content, entrapment, loading capacity, and dissolution. Drug dissolution. How much amount of the drug is being released from nano formulation? We are going to estimate. And entrapment efficiency is nothing but how much amount of the drug has been entrapped within the polymer. Loading capacity is nothing but the ability of the polymer to hold the drug. So these parameters we have to determine, and a comparative study was made among the 5 formulations which has been prepared by altering drug to polymer ratio. So when we are going to compare the 5 formulations of ethyl cellulose percentage yield, if you are going to see, the F3 formulation was showing the highest amount of percentage yield. The drug content also is found to be almost all the formulation, the drug content is more than 95%. Entrapment efficiency is best for F2 formulation, and loading capacity is also maximum for F5 formulation. So when compared to Abbaraju polymer, when we are entering into Abbaraju, the percentage yield was considered to be highest for F4 formulation. The drug content is considered to be highest for F3 formulation, and the entrapment efficiency is more for F3 formulation. Loading capacity is more for F4 formulation. So this is the comparative graphs for EC as well as Abbaraju. So when we are going to compare the EC and Abbaraju, the percentage yield and drug content are more than 95% we obtain. The entrapment efficiency we were able to obtain up to 60 to 70% entrapment we got. So in nano formulation, entrapment efficiency is considered to be one of the most important parameters, because if you are going to reduce the particle size, the ability to entrap the drug is also being declined. So correlating these 2 factors, mean particle diameter and entrapment efficiency, it is a challenging task to prepare a nano formulation. So this is the in vitro drug release studies of sulfasalazine nanoparticles by solvent evaporation technique. If you are going to compare F2 formulation within 12 hours duration, it is showing 98.3% of drug release. Abbaraju is also releasing more than 98% of drug release within a period of 10 hours. So when on comparison, the sustained release is more. It is capable of, EC is capable of sustaining the drug release for 12 hours. Abbaraju is capable of sustaining the drug release for 10 hours. So these are all kinetic plots for the best formulation prepared by solvent evaporation technique. So now let us see compare the best formulations of ethyl cellulose as well as Udragit. Among the ethyl cellulose, the F2 formulation considered as best. Among Udragit, F3 formulation was considered to be the best. So this comparison was made among these two best formulations of EC and as well as Udragit. So when we are going to see, the particle size is less in EC when compared to Udragit. The zeta potential is also high for EC. It is more stable when compared to Udragit. Upon comparison of all these evaluation parameters, somewhat the EC is showing the better result, and in some parameters the Udragit is showing better result. So let us come to the next technique, salting out technique. Here also we are going to dissolve polymer as well as drug in an organic solvent such as acetone. In aqueous solution, along with stabilizer, here we are going to add a salting out agent, magnesium chloride, like that. So the salting out agent will facilitate the diffusion of solvent into water. It will facilitate so that the drug will be precipitated out. So these are all various process parameters which we have optimized. So organic phase ethanol was selected, and the type and concentration of surfactant, sodium CMC 5%, agitation speed 700, organic to aqueous phase ratio 1:10 is giving the better result. Type of salting agent, zinc sulfate, was showing the better properties when compared to sucrose and magnesium chloride. So 5 formulations here also we have prepared. 1:1, 1:1, 1.5, 1:2, 1.5:1, 2:1. So agitation time is 5 hours. Surfactant is sodium CMC. Organic to aqueous phase is 1:10. Agitation speed is 700 RPM. Organic phase is ethanol. Salting out agent is zinc sulfate. 41.3% zinc sulfate we have used as a salting agent. So the methodology here, the drug and polymer both were dissolved in ethanol. Here we have prepared as per the drug polymer ratios, we have dissolved. Then the organic phase was emulsified at 700 RPM into the aqueous phase containing sodium CMC 5% zinc sulfate as a salting agent. Then the organic phase was added dropwise to the aqueous phase at constant rate. Stirring was continued for 2 hours. Then excess amount of distilled water was added to enhance the diffusion of organic solvent into aqueous phase. Then the resultant dispersion was collected by centrifugation for further studies. So the obtained nanoparticles were evaluated for surface morphology, drug polymer interaction, particle size diameter, zeta potential values. And these are the some images of F3 formulation. Salting out technique also we have taken 2 polymers, EC and Udragit. So these are the some images of EC and as well as Udragit. If you are going to see, the particles are found to be spherical in shape and they are ranging in nano. So this is the FTIR spectra of EC, sulfasalazine F3 formulation. So no additional peaks were observed. So there is no drug polymer incompatibility. So this is F3 formulation of Udragit. We didn't find any additional peaks and there is no incompatibility between drug and polymer. So the mean particle diameter and zeta potential values has been determined for EC formulation. Among the 5 formulation, the F1 was showing the minimum mean particle diameter of 172 nanometers. The zeta potential value is considered to be highest for F1 formulation. So this is the particle size distribution report, and this is a zeta potential report of F3 EC formulation. So now we will see the zeta potential and mean particle diameter of ED, Udragit formulation. Among the 5, the F1 formulation was showing 211 nanometers, and among the 5 formulation, the zeta potential value is considered to be 52 millivolts for F1 formulation. So if you are going to observe for EC as well as Udragit in salting out technique, the F1 formulation having equal concentration of drug and polymer is showing better result. So this is the particle size distribution report of F3ED. This is the zeta potential report of F3 formulation of Udragit polymer. So let us enter into the evaluation studies. So if you are going to see the percentage yield, drug content, entrapment and loading of EC polymer, On comparison, the entrapment efficiency was found to be highest for F3 formulation, and the drug content is found to be maximum for F5 formulation, and the percentage yield also highest for F5 formulation. The loading capacity is also best for F5 formulation. When entering into the Udragate, the entrapment efficiency is considered to be highest for F3 formulation. So here also the entrapment efficiency is highest for F3 formulation only. So these are the comparative graphs. Percentage yield is maximum in F5. Drug content is maximum in F5. Here the drug percentage yield drug content are maximum with the F3 formulation. And when compared to entrapment efficiency of EC and Udragate, F3 formulations are showing better result. In loading capacity, F5 formulations having the highest drug content 2:1 ratio is showing the better loading capacity. So let us compare the in vitro drug release studies, which has been performed by arbitrary shaker method for a period of 12 hours. 12 hours comparison we have made. So among the 5 formulation, the F3 formulation is showing the better result. 1:2 ratio, drug to polymer ratio is 1:2. So that is showing 97.8% of drug release in a time period of 12 hours. Here the F3 formulation within 10 hours it is showing 98.3% of drug release. So these are the kinetic plots for the best formulations of sorting out method. Now we would like to compare the EC and Udragate polymers, the best formulations of EC and Udragate with respect to all evaluation and characterization parameters. When we are going to compare, the F3 EC was showing the minimum particle diameter, the jitter potential value also slightly higher in a EC formulation. When we are going to compare the percentage yield, drug content, entrapment and loading capacity, the percentage yield is highest for ED and the drug content is highest for ED. Entrapment efficiency also highest for ED and the loading capacity is considered to be slightly higher for EC. So now we are going to compare the technique, sorting out as well as solvent evaporation technique. Sorting in solvent evaporation technique, the F3 formulation, what we got the best one. The best mean particle diameter what we obtained with the solvent evaporation technique is 188.1 nanometer. With the sorting out technique, it is 211 nanometer. And the jitter potential value is 62.6, which indicates it is highly stable. In sorting out, it is 45.4 millivolts. When we are going to compare the product yield, drug content, entrapment and loading capacity, the entrapment is slightly higher in sorting out technique and the percentage yield is also somewhat more in sorting out technique and remaining parameters are almost similar. So there is no significant difference between these two techniques. Almost the drug dissolution studies are also comparable. 98.2% and 97.6%, there is no much difference. So these are the kinetic plots for the best formulations of sulfasalazine nanoparticles, a comparison between these two techniques. So here the both techniques are considered to be good techniques for the preparation of sulfasalazine nanoparticles. Comparatively, in solvent evaporation method, we obtained mean particle minimum less than 200 nanometer. Normally, what we would like to achieve is a formulation with less than 200 nanometers, more than 80% entrapment efficiency, showing 100% drug release in a more than 12 hours duration is considered as a best one. So here we are capable of obtaining the entrapment efficiency only up to 68.7%. And the mean particle diameter we obtain less than 200 nanometer. That part we successfully achieved. And the jitter potential value more than 60, it is considered to be highly stable also. So the stability and particle size diameter both are satisfactory. And the entrapment efficiency has to be improved. So it should be at least 80% if you are going to obtain, means it is considered to be a better one. So more trials has to be made in order to improve the entrapment efficiency of the formulation. When we are going to see compare both the techniques, almost both the techniques are exhibiting good results. And salting out technique, we were able to obtain the entrapment up to 70%. So in the salting out technique, entrapment efficiency is more, and mean particle diameter solvent evaporation technique